Hey, this is Glendon. We're making money with storage unit auctions. The title of this joint: Pimps, Hoes, and a Ratty ass fur. This is a Peter Street story. I don't know what it is about that part of town, but there's a high concentration of pimps and hoes. And I'm not talking about a wannabe pimp or a guy that thinks he's a pimp. I am talking about a true 100% authentic pimp. When I got this unit, it just kind of blew my mind. This was not a high dollar unit, not any stretch of the imagination. It's pretty much the unit looked like a unit from hell. I got it for $11. There's a story behind that. I bid $5 and didn't think anyone was gonna challenge me on this trash unit. It was a 5x10 and it just looks like someone just went, threw all their stuff in there. And there was this new dude and he was like, he bid 5, he's like 6. And I'm like, oh, 7. Then, next thing you know, it's 8. Then he bid $10 and I went 11. And he said, too rich for my blood. I was just like, okay, whatever. Essentially, it was a flea market unit. That's what I was thinking in my head. And this is, Peter Street, so usually on one of those auctions, it's a long auction because that day I think they had something like 50-something rooms. And this was maybe room 12. So we had more to go. So I just put my lock on it and went on about my business to the next auction. Well, later on that day, after buying 8 more rooms, like just a glutton for punishment because most of the rooms were upstairs and I had to go on their regular elevator. But since this one was easy to get to, I was like, I'll start with those ones first and I can put it in my van. So go back to the unit, and if this has ever happened to you, you buy a unit and when you go back, you knew it was bad, but it seems like someone threw in 8 pounds of worse because it's like, I'm up the door and some stuff fell out and bounced on the floor and I was just like, what did I do? What did I do? But I stuck to the plan. Buy some nice units, buy some trash units, let the leverage work in your favor. At this point, I was like, okay, I had to lock it back up, go downstairs, get some trash bags and a few bins because there was a lot of loose stuff. And I come back up with my bins and things and I'm pulling stuff out, and fortunately for me, it starts to turn into boxes and furniture. And I'm like, okay, nothing spectacular, just run-of-the-mill regular stuff. I quickly sized up maybe $250, which for $11 ain't bad. And once again, leverage, and I had bought several units, so when you add it all up together, it was going to be quite nice. So I just threw it in the van, didn't think nothing of it too, didn't see anything strange and unique during the loading process. Went back to the warehouse. That's when things became very interesting. Because there was this nice dresser, very vintage dresser, Danish, which is like mid-century 50, and it was in very good condition. I just had to put a little polish on it and the thing was looking nice. That $250 estimate immediately doubled because I was like, I'm putting $250, $300 just on this piece alone. And because once I put a little polish on it looked great. All the drawers were functional, dovetail construction. It was a nice solid piece. And I knew exactly what part of town to put that up for sale in. I started going through the drawers, and then that's when things got even more interesting because the first thing I pull out is this huge dildo. Can't show you, can't put it in the title because people start tripping, then it gets censored for the adult content section. Anyway, huge thing. I mean, the thing was big as an arm. And I was like, okay, and this is why you should always wear gloves when you clean out your units and go through drawers. Always. Make sure you get a nice thick pair, leather or something. And I'm going through this stuff and I throw it in the trash, and then I found some 8mm stag film because with 8mm you could just pull it out and look at the light and see what it's about. And it was like old, I guess original porno, the 1960 early 70s doobie porno. I didn't look at it, but I had a guy that I flipped that to. I'm going through the stuff and then pull out another drawer. I get to find this guy's whole prison record. I mean, he's got it in a folder. If you remember those folders with the tongues where you had to put the hole punch in it, then you put the paper in there, and you had this whole dossier of his whole criminal life. First time he got arrested, essentially it was all his court papers and solicitation, panhandling, all kinds of stuff. Nothing heavy, and it was always for drugs. It was always for possession, not for possession with the intent to distribute. And I'm just going through it. And I'm like, okay, this guy's a pimp. But this is where it gets really cool because there was like some nice vintage 70s jewelry. This is 2012, but I think we're in the 70s. I'm seeing people with like skateboards, the music. I expect the disco to open up real soon. I'm pulling out stuff. Now, great jewelry, nice things. I'm like, okay, it's getting better. I'm like, okay, I said 250. Shoot, this may be $600-$700 unit. Not bad for $11. Just going through, and I got this little papers, and later on, I just kind of set them on my desk, and I just kind of went through and processed stuff, and then I found this afro wig, and I found these crazy dresses and platform shoes or whatever, and apparently this pimp was still pimping in his 60s because I knew how old he was, and he was an old dude at that time. He may not even be with us because he was like late 60s, he was still doing that pimp thing. I don't understand why a woman would go out and sell herself, then come back home and give all the loot to this dude. I don't understand it. If you understand it, you know how that works. Explain it to me, because I don't understand it. But he was doing it. And he had some nice mid-grade hoes. They were nice. I saw the pictures and everything. They were nice, nothing to write home to bum about, but they were nice. And I saw their stuff and their wares, and apparently one of his girls had the unit in her name, and she lost it. And something weird was going on. But the thing that got me was all of the Polaroids. They had Polaroids. He had Polaroids of all the girls. It was just a shoebox full of Polaroids from hundreds of Polaroids. Apparently he got his start in Chicago. It was a picture of him in a fur jacket next to a Cadillac, and there was snow on the ground. And I kind of recognized the backdrop. It was clearly Chicago. And that's where he got his start. And I'm just sitting there like, he kept all this stuff. And the pictures were so unique because they were very pimperish and iconic because he was always posing, like doing stuff like this and this. Not shooting any gang signs. I don't think that back then the pimp shot gang signs. And, he's got this stuff, these pictures, these women. And the thing is, then he had one where he had a black hoe, an Asian hoe, and a white hoe. And some girl, I couldn't really determine her origins. And, it was just like, he had them dressed in the appropriate colors. Like the black girl was in black, the white girl was in white, the Asian girl was in yellow. And I'm just like, this is some crazy stuff. But he had that going on. And I swear, that picture would have made like a dope album cover. Because it was just too unrealistic. And I'm going through this stuff, and I find the weirdest things. Like, I find old roach clips, and I find old ashtrays. Strangely enough, some of those lighters brought really good coin on eBay because for a pimp, he kind of kept up with stuff. I don't know how the pimp lifestyle works. I don't, but he kept up with stuff. He had a lot of stuff from that time period. And if you are in this resale game, you know that some people just go crazy over vintage and antique items, regardless of what they are. And I was like, okay, and I was just stacking stuff up, and the unit went from good to gooder. And when I was done going through the stuff, I was probably at $900 in sellable stuff. And oddly enough, not as much trash as originally thought. Because after, he had like his little pimp shoes and his little pimp suits, the leisure polyester suits. Do pimps wear polyester? I thought pimps wore the finest of the fine. But like I said, I am unfamiliar with pimpdom. I don't know how the pimping thing works. But had his little leisure suits, his little shoes. And this was the find. Because this is a lesson on how to sell stuff to people you wouldn't think. He had several pimp hats, like derbies and fur fedoras and things. And it was like, where do I sell this? So I went down, I went over to my computer and I was like, props. So I put an ad on Craigslist. I have a ton of pimp props, right? pimp props, took pictures of the hats and suits and everything, shoes. And this chick calls me like an hour later. It's like, I am having a 70s party. I need all of that for myself and my friends. This is just too good of a fun. I was like, okay. So she comes and, 8 of her friends, they come and they're almost like, they clean out the pimp stuff, the hats, the clothes. I hid the pictures and everything. And really made good coin, like $300 off some pimp stuff. But the real finds were the lighters, and like I said, the Polaroids, and you can actually sell that stuff. There are people that collect vintage porn, for real. This is one of the things I have to kind of, I gotta be careful about this. You never know who may be listening. I had people who like that type of stuff. So when you build a customer base and you get things that are esoteric, because I had one guy who the first time he came into the shop, I just thought he was the weirdest man in the world. And my partner was really, really good because she didn't like the porn out, but she had this cardboard box with XXX on it. And actually the box was behind the counter and he saw it and that he kind of perked up and he said, hey, what's in the box with the XXX? I was like, porn? He said, for real? I mean, at that point he became alive. He was like that flower. You poured water on him, he just opened up. And he's like, hey, if you get me, I like porn. I was like, yeah, most men do. He's like, no. I like the classic stuff. He went down like the stuff from the 70s. He's like with a storyline, the VHS. You get that, and he gave me his business card. Very nice job he has. And I was like, okay. So when I got those Polaroids, I called him up and I said, look, I don't know if this is your thing, but I have a box of Polaroids from an authentic pimp. And he said, really? I said, really? It's the pimp, his girls, apparently some of the Johns in various stages of sexual activities. And this is authentic. And he's like, well, what do you want for all of it? Me, I'm like in a silly mood, right? Because I just met it was some hot chicks for the 70 parties. The girl that came, your friends, like, our phone number and everything. It was pretty cool. And I was just like, yeah, give it $500 so you can have it all. He said, so. I was like, damn, I should have asked for more. So he came over. And this was on a Saturday, because this was the Saturday trail. And this is, how I used to work. And he comes over and I give him the shoebox and he just goes through it and he's just, oh, this is divine. Oh, this is, he went through like 30 pictures and he's like, oh, $500, 5 crisp $100 bills, small faces. And he said, thank you. This is a find. You just don't know. This is hard to get. And I said, really? He's like, and he started to let me know that him and his buddies, there's an organization for this stuff. And he's like, this right here is like the holy grail. He had never been that open and communicated. He just like sat down and just told me how it was. He said, this is going to elevate me in the group. I was like, really? He's like, no one's got anything like this. He said, this isn't porn. I was like, okay. He said, this is history. This is an archive of a true American pimp. I was like, okay, yeah, it is. He's like, you see, you don't understand. And he said it just like that. He said, you don't understand. He said, this is a lifetime find. To me, it was just a bunch of dirty pictures. But this guy was zooted. He was zooted, and, he was just like, you got anything else? And then I showed him some other stuff, and he just bought all that other stuff, gave me another $300 just for GP. I think he would have gave me $1,000 for that stuff, really. But over the years, he bought so much stuff from me, it was all good. And, I'm thinking, it can't get any better, right? I still have boxes to go through. Because I still got the Danish dresser, because I hadn't had a chance to put that up on Craigslist, because I was in a moment, like sometimes when you've been working all day, work was kind of like fun for me. And sometimes I would have fun with Craigslist. Like I wouldn't just put up like, you know, I would put up some strange ass ads sometimes. Sometimes I would put my disclaimer up. You know, I used to call it my terms of engagement. One day I will share that. And I was just like having fun with that stuff. And, you know, after talking to him, and, you know, understand, I had $1,200 in my pocket from a unit that I got for $11 mere hours later. And it's a Saturday night. And I got a phone number. Yes, I did. I called her and we did go out. And I was like, okay. So I'm going to the boxes because, you know, the thing is, like, you could be tired, but when you have a find like that, it gives you life. It gives you energy. Because I was like, oh, I'm going out. I called my partner up and I was like, you won't believe what. And he's like, really? I was like, yeah, you know, I broke off her portion. And I was like, yeah, it'll be in the drawer. You know, if you need to come by and get it tonight or whatever, it'll be here. But yeah, I made $1,100 off an $11 unit. And guess what? There's still this to sell. She was like, wow. She's like, well, I don't really need anything because I'm pretty good. So, you know, I'll just get mine later. So I was like, okay. I'll just keep it all. And I was going through the boxes. And then I find this fur, this mink. And to me, the mink was ratty. Just a little tip for you. When you get furs and stuff out of a unit, they may look good, but if the fur doesn't have the proper treatment and it's not in the proper environment, it dramatically lowers the price. And the people who handle furs know this and will see it in the meeting. We're like, that's no good. They would just tell you straight. They know their stuff. And I pull it out, and to me, it's ratty, right? It's just really, really ratty. But it's a mink. There was no holes in it. It just looked, you know, kind of like a horse that was real hard and put up wet. I mean, you know, structurally it was fine. It still had the lining in place and everything, and that stuff's important. And I was like, today's going well. What can I do? So I went to the back and got a mannequin. Because, all mannequins are not created equal. Because I got a unit with a mannequin that was full of big Brazilian butts. It came from this jeans store. So I went and got the big butt Brazilian mannequin. And also, I got the top of this really, this mannequin had huge boobs. I mean, they were like ridiculous. So I put that mannequin set together, put the ratty ass fur on it, put a little hat from another part in there, and just put "Get your pimp on" in an original. Wait a minute. Get your pimp on in an original pimperish mink, and took really good pictures of it and just had it looking all crazy, right? Because I didn't care. I didn't really care. Now, understand, I had been up since 6 that morning, had been to auctions all day, cleaned out a unit. It's got to be about 9:30 at night at this juncture, right? But I'm like, I'm rolling. I'm in the warehouse. You know, I got my 9mm, so I'm good. So I put this up there. 30 minutes later, I get this call. Hello? I was like, hey, you still got the mink? I do. I got to have that mink. I'm doing the voice as best I can. I was like, well, you know, hey, you know, make me an offer. Because, see, this is something else you could do at Craigslist when you have fun. Just put up an item and say, make me an offer. Don't put the price up. That way they can't, like, say, come down low, because they don't know where you are. I understand. The unit cost me $11, and I already had $1,100, so I didn't really care what I got for it. I really didn't care. I didn't give a damn. And he like, I likes that mink. And I'm just like, some just said, you know, sometimes I do this. This may weird you out, but sometimes when I get a vibe from a person, first thing that pops in my head, I'll just bring it to that person. And I'm just like, are you a pimp? It's a United Perceptive. I'm like, you're bullshitting me? He said, let me tell you a story. He said, better yet, what's your address? I gave him the address, you know. Okay, like I said, it's like he didn't get there at 10 something, but I didn't care. So he comes in, and he didn't look like a pimp. He didn't look like a pimp, you know. Button-down shirt, some slacks, dress shoes. He came in the Honda Accord. But when he started speaking, oh, this is the truth. I was just like, what is up with that voice? Because the voice and the body, it didn't fit. But, you know, he kept speaking like that. And I was like, okay. And it's like, tell me, say, well, back in the day, I was a pimp. But I gave my life over to Christ. And I said, okay. And, you know, he gave me the whole sermon and how he'd been through these things and the trials and the tribulations and everything. And I said, well, why do you want this meek? He said, I may have given my life to Christ, but there ain't nothing wrong with having a little fun every now and then. That's how he laughed. He had that little laugh, right? I said, okay. He's like, yeah, you know, he's like, I am not of that life anymore, but, you know, sometimes, you know, your memories will sustain you. I was like, okay. And I was like, so make me an offer on the meek. And he said, this is quality. This is quality. I'm trying really, really hard not to laugh in this man's face because the voice was just pure comedy. I was like, okay. And he said, man, this is quality. This is quality. $200 sold to the pimp, the former pimp who's given his life to Christ. And he said, amen. He pulled out the money. All right, $1,300. $1,300 on this $11 little unit, right? And it gets better. It gets better. So at this point, I'm like, it's late. I'm not really going out, so I do my thing, which is I go through all the letters because, you know, he had the little dossier with his, you know, life, his criminal life documented. But there was letters, and oh, there was some great letters because he would send instructions to his women in other cities. And like I said, I don't understand this pimp thing. It's like, to me, it's like an enslavement of the mind because chicks were doing stuff for this dude. And like I said, he was very nondescript. There was nothing extra special about him. He didn't have the superfly look. I mean, you know, he looked like a regular old dude to me. But he was like, this is what they want you to do. I don't even know how he spoke because, you know, there was no evidence of his voice. But I'm thinking, do all pimps sound the same? Could be. I don't know. And I'm going through the letters. Once again, I have to be careful because I put up a video like dildos and stuff and it got flagged. And I'm just like, I have to be real careful because we got some really sensitive ass people here that you can't say certain things because they just are so sensitive. But essentially, this dude wrote letters that were erotica. And he wrote very good erotica. Because I'm sitting there like, I'm going to have to try these. That just can't. I guess, you know, just being in a pimperish moment, I'm going to have to try this. So, like I said, if you ever had a day where whatever you did, it just went well, I mean, that was the kind of day I was having. So, remember, I got the number of that chick. And like I said, it's about 10:30. So, I'm like, hey, how you doing? Yeah, I am the guy that sold you the pimp stuff. She's like, oh, yeah. Hey, how you doing? I said, what are you doing? She said, nothing. I said, hey, let's go out. She said, now? I said, yeah, now, you know I got money. You get your money back tonight. She's like, you so stupid. And I said, I got something I want to read to you, right? She said, what is it? I said, it's a surprise. It's a surprise. Are you familiar with the Buckhead Diner? She's like, yeah. I was like, yeah, we can meet up there. So we meet there, and there she is. And me, understand, this is how I used to roll. This is so bad. But I've been working all day. I didn't go home and take a shower or nothing, you know. It was just like, phew. I'm just, you know, she seen me. She agreed to go out with me when I was like, you know, in my storage auction mode. And I'm sitting there, right? And I was like, I got these letters. I'm going to tell you something. That stuff y'all bought, it came from a real pimp. She said, stop playing. I said, no, it came from a real pimp. A real pimp. And I said, I want to read you some of those pimp letters. She said, for real? And she hit me. She said, get out of here, right? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to read you the letters. So I'm in the Buckhead Diner. We're in this booth, and I'm reading pimp letters to this chick. And she's just all in. And she's like, oh my God, I've never heard of such stuff. And I'm going to leave you to use your imagination to figure out what happened next. This is Glendon with Making Money with Storage Unit Auctions.